Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined special guest and good friend of mine, Gill Alexander. Beating the Book podcast. You can find him on Twitter as well at Beating the Book. And Gill, this is our second prop video. We're going to have some traditional props here, and we're going to have one of those ones where you got to play at one of those sports books far, far away, as we like to say, the offshore sports books.
Provided it were legal, yes, that's what we'd be doing.
That's what we would be doing. And I'm going to explain to some of the viewers that may not know. Vegas has all kinds of props, but the only props that you can bet in Vegas, and one of the most popular props offshore that they have every year is the over-under on the national anthem.
Right.
Okay, and people come to Vegas and they, I want to bet that, I want to bet that. You cannot bet that.
Nope.
There's no box score. There's no official stat guy.
The box score.
Saying that the national anthem went whatever the time was. So you can only bet a prop in Vegas if it is something that can be determined in a box score. That is the Nevada State Commission rules. But
you know where that becomes problematic, by the way, not to interrupt, is sacks. Sacks in a box score are never parsed in halves. They're only single sacks, and it's only in play-by-play data where you get half sacks. So that's an issue for Vegas props.
Props with the sacks. I'm not a big...
Just to throw that in, Mark.
Not a big, thank you for doing that. We're going to get it out of the way, because last year on your Megapod,
yes,
you became an instant legend of sorts.
It's so stupid.
That you came up with one of these, you scoured the board, found the prop, and there was a prop last year, Bruno Mars. I'm gonna let you have the limelight on your shining. That was your Animal Kingdom.
It was my Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom 30-1, the Derby that you hit.
Yeah.
But that was widely available, right? So I've done about 500 episodes of this podcast. I prep lovingly for every show, whether it's football, horse racing, baseball, whatever. And the most notoriety I get is for coming up with this Bruno Mars prop. So I'm a big Bruno Mars fan, and I follow him. And, he was wearing a hat for a lot of last year, a lot of during his concerts, a lot of his for his concert tour. Prior to the Super Bowl, we knew he was going to be the halftime act. And Bovada.lv, Square Book, put up a prop. What hat will Bruno Mars wear at halftime? Fedora, Kangol. I mean, I don't even recognize some of the hats that it was. But I had just seen him. He had a new pompadour haircut. I cannot believe we're talking about this now.
But it was vital information.
And I said, I know this to be a fact. Bruno Mars is not going to put on a hat with his new pompadour haircut. And the no hat option was the sizable dog at plus 250 or plus 270 or something like that. Pound the no hat. So he appears. First of all, Bovada had to knock it down. They had to take it off the board. So the one thing I can say about the podcast is we have some influence at some offshore sites on stupid props. And he appeared with no hat. And my Twitter was filled with a ridiculous, hundreds of people just going nuts that Bruno Mars had no hat. By that time, the game was already over.
That is your shining moment. Your 15 minutes of fame.
The problem is now, I'm sorry, I just spit everywhere. The problem is now, I get so passionate about Bruno Mars, is that now I feel obligated to come up with a Katy Perry prop.
Absolutely. Pressure's on.
Is this the most awesome thing you've ever talked about at Wager Talk, by the way?
It is. We haven't delved into the color of the orange or clear or red Gatorade. We did not do that. This is the first year on your podcast.
We didn't talk Gatorade.
Gatorade was not mentioned.
We got to go back and do the show.
And
we didn't
thankfully,
talk about Gatorade.
We did not talk about Gatorade.
Brian Leonard, by the way, who is your esteemed colleague here, he was the first person to ever almost walk off a podcast.
When you asked that question, yes.
It's not fantastic.
Tell me what's the prop on Katy Perry?
So, a exclusive, exhaustive investigation into Katy Perry on my part. It's not about
which wasn't bad. I mean, if you were watching videos and everything, and she wears some nice outfits.
I enjoy Katy Perry for certain parts of Katy Perry. I'm not a huge fan of her as a performer, let's say. But, I thought I could go to Bovada and find a prop that we could exploit. Bovada had one about Idina Menzel singing the national anthem. Would she forget or omit a word? she's not going to forget or omit a word. She's a Broadway professional, and sadly, though, it was at -800. So I can't recommend that. Bet Online had the Katy Perry prop we were looking for. So if you happen to have a Bet Online account, were it legal, this is something. So which is Katy Perry's first song? Which song of Katy Perry's will be her first song at halftime? There's 8 options. So I went into Katy Perry set lists. Concerts over 2 continents, last 8 months. Very scientific, Marco. In 100% of her shows, she opened with the song Roar, R-O-A-R, Roar. I'd sing it for you, but I don't want to.
Thank you for that.
So here's the thing. Now, you say to yourself, well, that doesn't mean she's going to open the Super Bowl halftime show with a song Roar, Gill, smart man. But here's the thing. She's not really she's not Prince, right? She's not this performer that can do things fluidly, like I'm going to start with this song on this concert and this one on another. Even when she dances, I was pointing out on the podcast, you can see her head. She's like left leg, right leg. So I think, and look, it's not as sexy as the +2 something with Bruno Mars, but it is plus money. And on the podcast, on the Beating the Book Megapod this week, at +140, I said, look, at +140, that's still a nice baseball dog during the season, right?
Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with plus money. Roar, that's the song she's going to start
And
with.
you've already moved the line.
Yeah, the line is moved already.
Yeah,
it's
down the +125.
Catch it while it's still plus money.
There you go.
That would be
are
my solid recommendation.
All right, okay. If we have any viewers still watching,
That's right.
we actually have player props now, and you have one more. We'll save that for a minute. We'll go with one of mine. And in the other video I talked about, I don't think New England's going to be running the football. I think they're going to be passing the football. And one of the player props I got is Shane Vereen. I think he's going to be used a lot in this game because I think you're going to see some multiple receiver sets from New England. And I looked at the games this year. 8 of the 18 games that he played in, 3.5 receptions, which is what the over-under is, he's gone over that. So you're saying, okay, well, only 8 of 18, that's 8 and 10, but this is a +140 prop. And I went and looked at 4 of the games that he didn't get to the total were absolute blowouts by New England, which in theory, you're going to shut down the passing game and you're going to start running the football. You got a big lead. So now we take that out. It puts us on even footing, and we're getting plus money. In my game theory that we're going to see passing makes it, I think, that he's going to go over the 3.5. So I'm grabbing over 3.5 receptions, Shane Vereen, and quickly, like I did with LeGarrette Blount prop, kind of like a correlated parlay. If you think he's going to get a lot of throws and receptions, then you would think he's going to get the yardage. And the yardage prop is at 27.5. I'm going to go ahead and take him at 27.5 receiving yards over, and that's a -110 prop.
Like it.
We're going to go, you've got another one, and there's an interesting prop they put up every year. They've changed it, as you talked about on the podcast. They used to always put this prop up at 3.
Yes.
Which, what we're talking about is number of players to score, and the kicker is included. So unless you know there's going to be one score, okay? Either the field goal or an extra point counts as scoring for the kicker. So you automatically got 1. If there's a touchdown, you automatically got 2 because somebody scored it, unless the kicker ran a fake field goal in for a touchdown. Would be the only way that you would have the same player for the touchdown and the extra point. Tell us why that used to be a great bet at 3.
Yes.
But you still think it's a profitable one at 3.5.
When it was at 3, just like you say, we used to say on the podcast, look, at 3, kickers included. That's the key to it. The fact that they include kickers. Unless you think a team's going to get so shut out and so dominated. But in most cases, and I remember we did it most famously, there was a Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl, one that they lost, I believe. To Green Bay, right.
Thank you for bringing that up.
You're quite welcome, sir.
When was the last time Washington was in a playoff game?
1992, I believe, was the answer to that question. But we won that one. But with that prop, 3 with the kicker was one of these things where I would say to listeners, be like, look, 1 touchdown is scored. We've got 2 of the 3 there already. You would have to be shut out the rest of the game or have the same exact player score the rest of the game for you to lose that prop. So you're almost, in essence, not guaranteed literally, but in essence, you're kind of guaranteed a push at the worst in that situation. They got smart, and they changed these, and you'll never find the 3 anymore. It's always 3.5. And so they set it at 3.5. How many different players on either team will score 3.5 over under. And I'm on the Seahawks in this game. I like the over on the Seahawks. It's at plus money. Where this, having to lay some juice, I might not like it as much. But at plus money, plus 110, last I looked at the Superbook here in Vegas, I like that. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because the Seahawks don't have, you could make the case that Marshawn is their guy, but it's not as if they don't spread the football around.
Right.
They're not a particularly, they're not the offensive juggernaut, certainly, that other teams have had this year and other years, but they have enough weapons between Lynch, Wilson himself, Russell Wilson that is, talked about Luke Wilson being an emerging star, a sort of plethora of wide receivers, none of whom necessarily sticks out, but all viable options for Wilson, and of course Hauschka, the kicker. So I think 3.5, I like the over at plus money because I can easily see Lynch getting one, Wilson himself getting one, and then there's another thing. There's always a 2-point conversion possibility. We don't know if that's going to happen. There's the Seahawks defense. They can be involved as well. Who knows there as well. If you can rely on a defense to be involved in this particular prop, the Seahawks one is a nice one to have in your back pocket as well. That would count as well. So I love the 3.5 at plus money.
All right.
Over.
The last prop I have is what we talk about. They call it a cross-sport prop, where they'll put up a team total, and this prop is,
I like this one.
Who will have more, the Miami Heat total points or Rob Gronkowski receiving yards? Now, this is one of those ones where I did a little bit of both when we talked in the first video of how guys will either look at your handicapping of the game or you look at the statistics. This one, I'm going to look at statistics and the handicapping. I think there's going to be passing. I think they're going to spread the field. If you do pass a lot and you go with 4 wide receiver sets, the most vulnerable part of the field becomes the middle when you spread a defense. Who is better in the NFL, maybe than Graham for the Saints, than Gronkowski going over the middle and making plays? And Gronkowski, because of his size, he gets a lot of yards after the catch, or as they like to say, yak.
Yak.
And so I look at this one, and they have his total yardage at 79.5. So if Vegas is telling you we think this is the medium for him, we look at the 79.5. The line on this is you get Rob Gronkowski plus 31.5 yards. So you add the 31.5 yards to whatever he gets. To whatever he gets, is that going to be more than what the Miami Heat are going to have? Just adding the 31.5, the Heat have to get to 111 points.
The Heat.
The Heat. Well, the Heat have not broken 100 in 11 of their last 13 games. In the 2 games that they did go over 100, it was 102 and 104.
Who are the Heat playing that day?
The Boston Celtics, another team that doesn't go up and down the floor. I think that there's a good chance that you're looking at Miami in the 90s in this game. And
that might be better than all my props, by the way.
This is probably my favorite prop here. Is all I got to do is get, if I get 3/4 of what Vegas thinks he's going to get, I have a shot of winning this. If I exceed what Vegas thinks he's going to get, which my game plan thinks so, we soar over what the Heat score. Now watch the Heat play a 5 overtime game on Sunday.
That's the problem, right?
But I'm going to take Rob Gronkowski plus 31.5 yards over the Miami Heat total points as my final prop here on the video.
I will endorse that one.
All right. Maybe we should run by the Hilton when we're done with this and grab that one. All right. That wraps up the video props. And I want to tell you, don't forget, football season's done. We still got basketball. Every Tuesday at Wager Talk, we take one handicapper and we give his best bet for $2. That's right, $2, you get their best bet. Last night, we're taping on Wednesday this week. Last night, I had the $2 capper. We gave you a winner with UNLV. Great way to introduce yourself to the site, find a capper you're comfortable with, and see how easy it is to win with the cappers at wagertalk.com. Head on over every Tuesday to check out $2 Tuesday and see who the featured capper is. That wraps it up. We've got one more video for you on the Super Bowl. We're going to actually talk about the game itself.
What?
That's up next, and Gil's going to give you his best bet for the Super Bowl here on wagertalk.com.